Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome back to those who have followed me in 2020, and welcome anyone that's new that's watching this. Welcome to my very first episode of 2021 for the weekly Facebook Live Heart to Heart with where conversation straight from the heart is what it's really all about. I hope you all had a great start to 2021 so far. It's been such an exciting start for me with a lot of time set aside for setting intentions, setting my vision and my goals for the year, and working towards bringing more value on some of the exciting projects coming up, such as the nonprofit I'm working on, which is Lyceum Global, founded by Dr. Anlan, the best-selling author of Living in Grace, Living Your Best Life Now, who's also my mentor and friend, as well as working on this live series and my podcast, Heart to Heart with and a few other personal endeavors. But you know what? I'm so excited to be able to connect on a weekly basis here every Friday with some amazing people in my life that I'm always learning from, be it from afar or nearby. Whether I get to speak to them once a year, once a month, or once a week, I have a deep respect for what they have achieved, not just in business, but in their overall life. I do look for people who have joy in every aspect of their life, and their stories really inspire me, and I hope they will inspire you as well. And today's guest is someone I'm so proud to have known for quite a few years now. And we belong to a group we call Sisterhood of many amazing women. And so we do get to enjoy each other through social settings, through different events. She's a great friend, but more amazingly, she is a leader in the community. She is the Executive VP of Marketing and Business Development for Nurture and Growth Fertilizer, Inc., which is based in Mississauga, Ontario, an industry leader in providing effective, bio-organic, eco-friendly, and economic fertilizer. She's a passionate woman empowerment and youth leadership development advocate. So at this time, I want you all to welcome my good friend, Luong, to our conversation. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Mai. Hello, everyone. Thank you so
Happy
much
New
for the
Year.
invitation. Happy New Year.
Yes, I know it's just only 8 days, but I know you've had a busy start to your year, haven't you?
Thanks so much. Happy New Year to everyone out there. And thanks so much for the invitation to participate in your weekly Heart to Heart.
You're welcome. Thank you for being on here. So I know you mentioned to me earlier you had such a busy start to your year already, right? You're a you're a jet setter, on the go type of woman. And the fact that you dedicate some time to be here to talk to me and to the community, I truly appreciate that. So let's get right into it, Lee. A lot of us know you and we have a lot of fun, but we might not know your full story. So I'm curious, can you perhaps share with everyone listening your journey, your professional journey to where you are today, leading such an amazing company? So please share.
Okay. Well, where I am today is very, very different from where I started off. And, that's the amazing thing about life is that if you pigeon yourself um, you pigeon yourself into a hole, you just stay static. So my professional career began in education, where I was working in administration, running a private school, firstly running their business department, then running their admissions department, and running their marketing department, where I had opportunities to do international business development. So at the age of my mid 20s, I was globetrotting all over Asia. And at the time, I had a very unique opportunity to be stationed in Beijing and then stationed in Seoul. So my globetrotting days have been with me, almost from the beginning of my career. And after a while, you feel a sense of like accomplishment, but then you also wonder what is out there. So being in education for 11 years and being, at the same company, I started to wonder what is left out in the world there. So I was a big fish in this little sea. What else was out there? And I, whether you call it brave or whether you call it adventurous, I decided to quit my job. As much as I loved my students, like imagine come to work and having your kids. At that time, it was acceptable, for the kids to come up and say, "Hi, Miss Lee," and just I love it. I taught photography there, after school. I'm connected with some amazing kids. And even to this day, some of my students who are like 30 years old, they still call me Miss Lee, even though they've graduated, and they're in the business world. But it really got me thinking, I'm this big fish in this little sea. What else is out there? So I quit my job and, to do some soul searching. And from there, I explored a number of different opportunities, and that's when I started getting into environmental sustainability, and eventually started my own company, Goals Business Solutions, with a business partner. So we ran that for a few years, and I came across this really interesting project called Nurture Growth Biofertilizer. So this was in 2015, and
Mm-hmm.
the founder at the time said to me, can you help market this product? I have this fertilizer, and literally it was a bottle. I mean, knowing very little, but that was not, I wasn't very fearful of it. Like, to me it was a challenge. And it's amazing how your life really goes into a full circle. So when my family first arrived in Canada, we were sponsored by two church, and my parents were farmers. We farmed cucumbers, right? And now, I don't know, 30 plus years later, I'm in agriculture, again. So I feel like it's a real calling. So when I was first introduced to it, I thought, wow, this is something that's very innovative. So what we do is that we take food waste from restaurants, supermarkets, and food manufacture, and we convert it into fertilizer, but then we add these special microorganisms. So just think of it as friends with benefits, right? So it's to me it was uh, a project where there was a lot of good that we can do for the environment, in helping to reduce our environmental impact by, one, diverting food waste from landfills, and then two, providing sustainable alternatives for farmers. And being raised in a farming community, I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So 5 years into the business, um, now I am running the company. We've are exploring internationally, participating in a number of trade missions, from India to Brazil. Just before the holidays, even though we're in COVID, business has really forced us to do business differently. So I was in a trade mission where I met with people from Peru, from Mexico, from Colombia, from Chile. If I was to do that business development in my previous, pre-COVID, it would take a lot of time and effort. But in 4 days, I was able to meet with so many companies. So COVID has opened our eyes into a different way of doing business, for sure.
I'm so glad that you share that, because I think despite all the challenges that people share about COVID, it's always great to look at the lens of the positive things that has allowed you to, right? That has allowed things to happen just in business alone, right? That's amazing. So you mentioned all these different countries and all these places, and trust me, I was watching you on Facebook where you be 1 week here, 1 week there. I remember even messaging you say, "Hey Lee, are you even in Toronto?" And most of the time I would get probably not. So that is amazing. So I'm sure you get a nice little break from last year of not always traveling, but do your travels. Let's talk about that. While you're traveling for business and you're basically stepping into so many different cultures, I would assume. There must be a lot of different challenge, but also lessons learned by doing business cross culture, right? I think there are entrepreneur and that grow a business within a very specific confinement of a territory or a country, which is great. But when you cross these borders and go into different countries, there's so many things that you have to learn about. Maybe you can share some of those lessons or anything you found that were really interesting.
Okay. Uh, I was speaking about this maybe around a year ago to a group of young university students who was asking about women in leadership and business, conducting business internationally. And regardless of how progressive we are with women's rights and women in leadership, we still have to be very respectful of other cultures. Other cultures are not necessarily in the same space as North Americans, right? In
Mm,
a lot of situations where we are very progressive, there are more women participating uh, on boards, more women in leadership positions. Even within the last 10 years, I would say I see a lot more of that. But regardless of the progress that has been made, we still have to be very respectful of other cultures that they're not necessarily there. So I'll give you an example. I was in India, and even though the urban areas are quite progressive and they respect women's right, but in certain industries it's still male dominated, and especially in the fertilizer industry it is
mm,
95% male, older male dominated. And being a younger female, I had to be very respectful to understand what are the cultural differences
mm,
and how to bridge those. So, an example where I was visiting a farmer out in like the suburbs. This is like a few hours from a major city in Hyderabad, in Karnataka. So the farmers, even though I am a representative of the company, but because I was a female,
mm.
I sat in the car while my driver, who was a male, spoke to the farmers.
Wow.
So you really have to respect the culture and understand the culture and not take offense to it, right? And
Mm.
really appreciate and understand before you get into situations, for sure.
Oh, that's a great example. Yeah, instead of having, I guess you can say having a certain ego or saying, this is how it should be because of where I come from, but just having that understanding and that respect for other people, cultures, and heritage really make a huge difference. And you also touch on an important topic, which is in the business world. It's still, heavily dominated by a lot of male leaders, right? And so I think as a woman, not only do you have the pressure the of business, but of that different perspective or perception of what a woman in business should look like and what a man in business should look like, right? Tell me about that, because I know you're huge in woman empowerment. So what are some tips then would you say to give women who want to be able to earn that respect at the same table as their male counterparts?
I think the first foremost is confidence. That self-confidence and looking yourself in the mirror and say, I am as good, if not better, than anyone else across the table. And I think that as women, we don't give ourselves enough credit
Mm,
that we are capable and we have the ability and we can do it, right? So I think the first most important is that self confidence and that self reassurance. And even with myself, there are days where I am not as confident. I'll give you an example. I was invited to speak at the UN a few years ago in New York, in regards to refugees. Private refugee sponsorship, and I was in the private VIP room, and I felt so overwhelmed. Here there's all these big powerhouses that we had: Ivanka Trump, there was also Wyclef John from the refugees, and like all these powerful CEOs, and I felt little so little. It was like just me in this room with all these people. And Stephen, my boyfriend, said to me, Lee, you are an amazing person. You have earned your right to be here. You go out there and you introduce and you act the way you normally do in every single setting. And that pep talk really helped me, because my first person I spoke to was Wyclef Jean, and we hit it off really great. So that self confidence is really important. So it doesn't matter how confident you are. Sometimes you just have to remind yourself, or have people remind yourself of, I deserve to be here. I am good at what I do, and I deserve this.
Oh, that's amazing. Yes, you touch on something that I often hear, especially as I've been doing a lot of learning, is that I think it's it's in all of us to have this tendency to always, first off, compare ourselves. And then we say, oh, I am not enough. Right? That's kind of the first thing.
Mm,
And I think it happens in women even more. We keep on saying we're not enough because whatever society puts out or what we decide to compare ourselves to, but it's not true. Like what you said, it's not true. We are enough within ourselves, right? We don't
mhm.
need to be, you're not trying to be another individual. You are Lee Long and you know how to be the best Lee Long. So you just gotta go out there to do you, right? I totally hear you because I often feel like that too. And sometimes, when you feel like that and you let that fear kind of stopped you from moving forward. That's when it's crippling. So thank you so much for that
Yes.
reminder of being confident. Now let me kind of dig deeper. What if some people are like, well, where do you get that confidence from? Because it's tough. Not everyone can get the can have that confidence, right?
Yeah. So for those, you really, number one, have to dig deep, but I recommend that you watch this YouTube, this TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, called, I, I, I believe it's like leadership or confidence, but maybe Maya, I'll send you the link and you can share it with your followers. And in her TED Talk, she said that you fake it until you make it. You are enough. You have to have that confidence, in yourself. You have to have that body posture. You have to have that confidence. So you keep reminding yourself that you are enough. I can do this, right? And there were several studies that she talks about, where people who exhibit certain body languages are more confident versus non-confident people. So the body posture is really important in terms of developing, that confidence, as well. But I think that you really have to dig deep
Mm,
within yourself and find that strength, right? And surround yourself with people who share that vision, right?
mm,
So there's a Vietnamese saying, and I'm horrible, at this. Um, I think it's called gần đèn thì sáng, gần mực thì đen, or something like, when you're near the light, you're shining, and when you're near the dark, you become dark ink, you become dark. So surround yourself with people, surround yourself with positivity. That really helps with the self-confidence for sure.
Oh, that's right. No, I totally agree. Because when you surround yourself with people who are constantly saying, I'm not enough or I'm a victim, then that's kind of like things that you're saying into your head. I've actually learned what you're saying is, what you mentioned, fake it until you make it. When you keep on telling yourself, I am enough, I'm confident, that's you creating these affirmations in your head where you're like saying that it's like you having that friend that has to remind you, right? And how
Mhm.
many times have we looked at other people and said, I don't know why they're not confident. They're so amazing. We do that to other people all the time and we forget to do it to ourselves. So we need to surround ourselves with amazing people who can remind us that, you know what, you're amazing because you're just, in that moment not seeing it, right? I totally
Mhm.
agree.
Can I also share one more thing? So one of my ex manager, the boss, and he really believed in me. His name is David Butcher, and I was going through a very difficult time. This was in my mid 20s, and he said, Lee, I want you to put on a post-it note, put it on your mirror, and repeat this to yourself every single day. Every day I'm getting every day in every way I'm getting better and better. And that has really helped me get through some dark times, because we're in your mid 20s, you're unassured yourself, there's a lot of things going on. And those words of affirmations have really helped. As cheesy as it was, it worked for me in my mid 20s.
Yeah, some of these cliche or cheesy thing actually work because that's why they become so well known, right? Because they
Mhm.
work, right? That's
Yes.
amazing. And what I've also noticed about you is that uh, you're always learning. I notice that when we have our conversations and when we're talking, I feel like you're always curious. You're always asking questions. You're always learning, which I assume would then help you gain more knowledge to build that confidence.
Because absolutely, I think that curiosity is really the fear of being bored. So so my mind is always very curious. I always want to learn new things because I get very excited about things. So when I learn new things, I feel very excited, and the more that you know, the more empowered you feel, right?
Yes.
So that's why I'm always learning, and I'm curious whether it's, American elections, or learning about microorganisms. I think the last 2 days, even though I'm quite into politics, I don't really understand how this whole American system works. Congress, like, Senate, how they, like, you don't get it. So then actually have to sit down and read. Okay, now I understand, and have a fuller picture to understand where we are today, right? So it's just a matter of curiosity and learning, because then learning allows you the ability to engage into conversations which you would not have been able to in other circumstances. So that's why I'm always very curious, is that I want to be able to participate. I am a people person. Yeah, I want to have my contributions. A lot of it, I guess. Sometimes I feel like I over contribute.
That's okay. I think we all have those moments where we kind of get so into it and we overdo it, but then I guess we also are learners, so then you learn when to cut back, when to scale back, when to set those boundaries, right? And one thing that I think everyone can agree with me when they meet you is that you are always full of joy and full of energy. You're like this little ball of energy, like a child. And I think that's part of you being curious all the time. You're like this child. And so no one could ever guess your real age. I won't reveal either. But I feel you're always looking younger and younger, and you're full of joy and energy. Is there something that you do? Is there like a food that you eat? Is there a routine that you do? Exercise? What is it? What are some of your secrets that maybe you can share?
Makeup.
Makeup.
Oh,
Even when you don't have makeup.
actually, makeup is very superficial, and I think that happiness, you have to really dig deep. I think that understanding who you are and having that confidence and accepting, hey, I'm not good at this. That's okay, and learning to live with yourself. So I try not to let those negative things bother me. And you know what? I'm not saying that my life is perfect. I'm not saying, that I'm better than anyone else. But you know what? I'm just me, and I'm just happy being me. And my friends, that are more successful or whatever, I'm so happy for them, right? Because they've done it, they deserve it. And I think that when people start comparing themselves with others, that's where jealousy happens, and that's where that negativity draws in. And I honestly am never bothered by that. But I believe that people, not only, especially women, we need to help each other and empower each other, right? As opposed to being catty and fighting, with a, like, I'm a no nonsense person. I don't have time for drama, right? Or I try not to have drama. But if you stay away from that negativity and you look at things from a different perspective and try to be compassionate, right? Then it really helps you overcome some of that negativity. And I think that, superficially, yes, I may look young, and regardless if I have makeup or not, but I think that it's really the mentality of that happiness. I try to keep a happy space where not to let too many things that bother me to the point. But that's what has worked for me, is keeping that happy space, that zone, to myself, and knowing who I am, and not being bothered by what other people say about me, or if people are, are this, or people are that. No, that's them, and this is me.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think you have that aura about you where with I really respect, which is you don't need to have everyone to like you. but they will respect you once you have a stand for who you are, right? I mean, I had to learn it, and of course, you know me for through my years too. I have to learn it sometimes the hard way too, because for years I've always been a people pleaser, and I felt like I had to, say yes to everything around me, and sometimes, that is the detriment of myself, right? So sometimes it's just
Mm.
being able to have a stand, say no, and also to stand for what you believe in and be authentic and be real and be who you are. And it's fine when you mention when some people might not like the real you that show up, right? Because it might rub people a certain way, but as long as you're true to yourself and you stay happy, then at least people will respect you for that. And I've had to learn that I don't need everyone to like me, but if they can respect me for what I stand for, that's good enough, right? And I definitely know that you have a lot of respect from all the people that I have met, that have known you, whether it's working on a community projects, through business, because you've done a lot, not just in business, but for community. Yeah, you're such a community advocate, and you've been involved in a lot of different projects. Can you share a little bit some of your motivation for some of those projects you're involved in? Because someone else could say, she can spend that time doing something else, but you give a lot to the community.
Yeah. You know, Part of it is for selfish reasons. It makes me happy when people are happy, and that's really my driving force. I don't necessarily stick to one particular project or one particular group. Is where there is a need, that is where we will go. So, for example, during COVID, there was a need for PPE. So, a group of my friends got together and did a PPE drive and supplied it to a number of hospitals, long care facilities. We also did and that was just with our own organization. Another time we were working with Mayor Crombie in the springtime, and then also again in the fall to help fundraise for the Mississauga Food Bank. So where there is a need, where the Vietnamese community can contribute, because I think that as a community, we have been so fortunate to um, benefit the generosity of Canadians. And now that we are at a place where we can give back and pay it forward, we're able to do that through whether it's helping out with food banks or helping refugees settled in. So for example, in early December, our last family, we've sponsored 5 Syrian refugee families, and the last family has arrived. Before that, they were stuck because of COVID. There was a lot of waiting that's happening around. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and regardless of what's happening in the world, we still have to continue that hope. So during COVID, as difficult as it was, the application process still continued. They got approved. Now they've arrived in Canada. They had to make sure that we gave them quarantine before once they arrived. So you imagine all the logistical stuff that we had to do, during a time that there was a surge. But what has been so rewarding is to see how happy they are, to see this family settle in Canada just the way I settled in Canada when we arrived 37-ish years ago. So it really brings me a lot of joy to help people, and that's my selfish reason. There's really no other alternative motive to that. Is just to help people. I feed off of that happiness.
Mm, amazing. Yes. And, appreciate you being honest about that, because at the end of the day, we need to love ourselves first. And if it brings joy to us first, then we can bring more joy to other people, right? That's
Yeah.
amazing. Well, I look at our time, and every sessions I dedicate between 30 to 40 minutes for our conversations. So before I say goodbye to everyone and wrap it up, do you have any last words or anything you would like to share to everyone listening in today?
Well, thanks again for the opportunity to share my story with your followers. If there's anything that you can take away from this conversation, is to remember to love yourself and tell yourself, I am enough. I can do it. and I will do it, right? And just like what Amy Cuddy said, fake it until you make it, whether you have the confidence. So, love yourself. And I think that that will take you far more places, than anything else. And it will help you really overcome some challenges that you might have in your life.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Well, there you have it. Okay, guys. 2021, besides everything else, I think is a great time for us to dedicate a lot of time for our own growth. Is where we really love ourselves and spend that time. I know I'll be working on a lot of that. So once again, thank you everyone that's joining in on these weekly live series. As I have mentioned, in December, I've also launched a podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and a few other platforms that you can definitely subscribe if you're more of a listener and want to tune in. And generally, what I do is I share some of these conversations as well on the podcast, as well as other conversations that I do not have a live with on the podcast as well. So once again, thank you so much. If you have any feedback, any reviews, or if there's a particular guest like Luong here today that you really enjoy listening to, please connect with me and let me know, because I'm always looking to bring back guests, because I find that their stories are there's so much to their stories, and I'm sure we can go we can dig deeper and deeper. So I love to invite some of the guests that are on here back as well too. And once again, thank you so much. And I will see you in the next Friday episode. So have a great weekend, everyone, and enjoy your weekend, okay? Bye.
Happy New